Welcome, welcome, and thank you for being here tonight. Before we begin, take a moment to make yourself comfortable. Adjust your pillow if it needs adjusting. Pull the blanket a little closer if the room is cool. Let your shoulders soften just a little away from your ears. Tonight, we are going to descend very slowly into a small and peaceful place at the bottom of the sea. There's nothing to worry about there. There's nothing to do there. There's only quiet and warm brass light and the steady tick of a pressure gauge and the patient work of one kind caretaker who has been expecting us for some time. Before we go, let us settle the body. Take a slow breath in through the nose, gentle and unhurried, and let it out again, softly, through the mouth. And another. Feel where your body meets the mattress, or the cushion, or the chair. Feel the places where you are already being held. The back of your head, the backs of your shoulders, the backs of your legs, the heels of your feet. You are held. You do not need to hold yourself. If your mind has brought a few small worries into the room with you, that is all right. You do not need to send them away. You can simply set them one by one on a small table beside the door. They will still be there in the morning if you want them. Most nights, you will find you do not. Now, let your eyelids grow heavy if they're not already. Let the tiny muscles around your eyes soften. Let your jaw unclench. Let your tongue rest low in the mouth. Let your hands lie open or curled, whichever feels more like resting. We are going to travel down through cool green water, deeper and deeper, to a small brass bathysphere that has been made into a reading room. It is a quiet, kindly place. Nothing there will surprise you. Nothing there will ask anything of you. You may listen closely, if you like, or you may drift off entirely. Either is perfectly welcome, and either is entirely correct. Take one more slow breath, in and out. And now, very gently, let the room around you fade a little, and let a new one, a quieter one, a deeper one, begin to take shape in its place. You are standing on a wooden pier at dusk. The boards beneath your feet are wide and old, worn silver by salt and by the patient tread of years. A hemp rope, thick as your wrist, runs from a great wheel at the pier's end down over the edge, disappearing into water that has begun to gather the color of a slate roof after rain. The wheel is turning very slowly, one careful notch at a time, moved by a counterweight you cannot see. It creaks softly, the way an old chair creaks when someone settles into it. The air smells of wet rope, and of cedar oil rubbed into the pilings, and of the faintest thread of wood smoke drifting from the fishing hamlet on the shore. Behind you, up the slope, small windows are lighting one by one, the color of butter melting on toast. Ahead of you, the sea is going quiet. At the pier's end, a cage is waiting. It is not a cage in any unkind sense. It is a small, round platform surrounded by a lattice of brass bars, roomy enough for 2 or 3 people, floored in scarred teak, with a little wooden bench along one side. A lamp with a green glass shade hangs from its ceiling. The cage is attached to the great pulley rope, and it is patient. It has been patient for 100 years. A woman stands beside the cage, waiting. Her name is Ozielle. She is the caretaker of the reading room down below, and she has been expecting you. She is not tall. Her hair is the color of pewter, pinned loosely at the nape of her neck. She wears a long wool coat the color of moss, and boots that have been resoled many times, and a scarf knitted from something soft and undyed. Her hands, are the hands of someone who has done careful work for a long time and who is not in any hurry to stop. She smiles at you and nods and does not speak, because in her profession, one does not speak unless one must, and the pier is close enough to the reading room that she has already grown quiet. She gestures gently toward the cage. Please come in. You step aboard. The teak floor gives just a little beneath your weight, a small, welcoming give, the way a good boat gives. You sit on the wooden bench. Ozielle steps in after you and pulls the small brass gate closed with a soft click. She does not lock it. There's nothing here to lock against. She turns to the wheel at the pier and eases a lever with the flat of her palm. The great counterweight, somewhere in its wooden housing, begins to shift. The cage lifts, ever so slightly, off its resting notch. And then, with a sound like a long, patient exhale, it begins to descend. You watch the pier rise slowly past the brass bars. First the boards, then the pilings, then the dark line where the water lives against the wood. And then the water closes over the top of the cage, and the world goes green. The descent is very slow. This is important to Ozielle. A rushed descent, she believes, unsettles the mind and unsettles the fish. And the reading room is not the sort of place one arrives at in a hurry. And so the cage sinks by careful inches, the pulley rope creaking in that same slow chair creak rhythm above your head. The water changes color as you go. Near the surface, it is the pale green of new leaves. Then, as the light thins, it becomes the deeper green of moss on a stone. Then, a green like the inside of a good bottle held up to a lamp. Then, something quieter still. A green so soft it has almost decided to be blue, but is not quite committed. Ozielle stands with one hand resting easily on a brass bar. She is watching the water, the way another person might watch a slow fire. She has descended this route thousands of times, and she still watches it because she believes that if you stop watching a beautiful thing, you will one day forget it is beautiful. Small silver fish, no longer than your finger, drift past the cage in unhurried schools. They are not startled. They know the cage. They have known the cage for generations of small silver fish, and they part around it politely and reform on the other side, the way a slow river parts around a stone. Down and down. The light thins further. A soft violet enters the green. You cannot see the surface anymore. When you look up, there's only a faint, pale smear, like a memory of the moon. Ozielle reaches into a pocket of her wool coat and takes out a small brass key on a length of cord. She holds it in her palm for a moment, warming it, and then puts it back. It is not yet time. Down and down. Now something new begins. In the darker water below, small lights begin to appear. Not many at first. One here, one there. Pale points that pulse and drift. These are the shoal lights of the deep, small creatures who carry their own quiet lamps. Some are the pale gold of a lanternfish. Some are the cool green of a jellyfish's edge. Some are so faint you are not certain you saw them at all. You watch them without trying to name them. Ozielle has told you nothing about them, and there is nothing you need to know. They are simply the traffic of the deep, going about their patient errands. The cage sinks further. The pulley rope creaks. Somewhere above, on the pier, the great wooden wheel turns another slow notch. And now, gradually, a shape begins to make itself known below. A pale round shape, resting on a broad shelf of silt that glows very faintly with its own soft light. The shape is the Bathysphere, It is smaller than you might have imagined, and rounder and older. Its body is brass, gone the color of a copper penny that has spent a long life in a pocket. Around its middle runs a broad belt of teak, dark with sea polish, and set into that belt are 3 round portholes, each the size of a dinner plate, each glowing a soft, warm yellow from within. Above the bathysphere, a slender guide line runs up to meet the pulley rope. The cage slides down that line as if it were a bead on a string, and slows, and comes to a rest beside a small landing platform bolted to the bathysphere's flank. Ozielle opens the brass gate with another soft click. She steps out onto the platform, and you follow her. And the teak boards beneath your feet feel warm somehow, though they cannot really be warm. It is only that they are dry and solid and expected. The bathysphere's door is round, like the door of a bank vault in a picture book, but far kinder. It has a wheel in its center, and around the wheel, a ring of small brass studs, each polished by decades of hands. Ozielle takes the brass key from her pocket, fits it into a socket beside the wheel, turns it once. You hear a small, satisfied click inside, and then turns the wheel itself, slowly, hand over hand, until the door eases open on its long hinge. Warm light spills out, warm light and the smell of old paper and cedar oil and something faintly like tea. You step inside. The reading room is one perfect circle. It is not large, perhaps 12 paces across, no more, and yet it feels somehow exactly as large as it needs to be. The walls curve gently inward toward the ceiling and outward toward the floor, and every inch of them, except where the 3 portholes in the door interrupt, is lined with shelves. The shelves are teak, oiled dark, and the books upon them are old and various and lovingly kept. There are cloth-bound books the color of forest floors and moss, and leather books the color of tobacco, and slim books bound in canvas that is softened almost to velvet. The floor is teak as well, laid in a spiral pattern that begins at the center and winds outward. In the very center of the spiral stands a small round table, and on the table sits a shallow wooden bowl, and in the wooden bowl, catching what light there is, rest hundreds and hundreds of glass marbles. Some of the marbles are clear, with tiny bubbles trapped inside like held breaths. Some are the deep green of a wine bottle, some the blue of a summer evening, some the amber of honey held to a candle. A few are milky, the color of moonlight on a still pond. They lie together in the bowl in a great, gentle heap, and when Ozielle passes the table, she does not disturb them, but she smiles at them the way one smiles at a familiar cat. Along the curve of one wall stands a single velvet chair. Its nap has been worn soft by the sitting of many readers over many years. It is the color of a plum, or perhaps the color that a plum becomes just before dawn. Beside the chair, a small teak side table waits, and on the side table, a phosphor sconce is mounted to the curving wall, a small brass fitting with a piece of pale glowing crystal inside a glass shade. There are 3 such sconces in the reading room, spaced evenly around its curve. As you enter, they are dark. Ozielle moves to the first one, reaches up, and taps its base with the flat of her thumb. The crystal inside comes gently awake, and light begins to pour out, a light the color of milk warmed by moonlight, pale and cool and kind. She moves to the second sconce and taps it awake, and then the third. The reading room now is glowing. You stand for a moment in the center of it, near the bowl of marbles, and let your eyes adjust. The light is soft enough that no shadow is sharp. Every shape has an edge that has been polished by the light, the way a river polishes a stone. Behind you, Ozielle closes the round door. She does not seal it. That would be uncivil, and she has no reason to. She simply pushes it into its resting place, and the room becomes a little quieter, and the deep hush of 200 fathoms of water presses gently against every curve of the brass hull. That hush is not silence. It is something better than silence. It is a hush that has weight and warmth, and the memory of many hushes before it. It is the sound of water being still. You can hear, inside the hush, 3 small sounds. The first is the tick of the pressure gauge. It is a brass gauge mounted beside the door, roughly the size of a saucer, with a black needle and a curved brass face that has been polished so many times it holds the room in soft reflection. The gauge ticks once every few seconds, a slow, patient tick, like a clock that has decided time need not be measured in seconds. Just a tick, and a rest, and a tick. The second sound is the creak of the pulley rope, which comes and goes, muffled through the hull, as the great wheel above turns its careful notches. The third sound is a soft, occasional beating, the sound of condensation gathering on the inside of the teak-framed portholes and slipping, one drop at a time, down the glass to the small brass gutter waiting to catch it. That is all. That is the whole music of the reading room. Ozielle moves to the porthole on the far side of the room, takes a chamois cloth from a hook beside it, and begins, with slow, round motions, to wipe the condensation away from the inside of the glass. As she wipes, the porthole clears, and the water outside becomes visible again. The deep, gentle green blue of 200 fathoms, veined here and there with the drifting lights of shoals passing in the distance. She works her way around the room. The first porthole, the second porthole, the third porthole. She does not rush. She does not miss a spot. The chamois cloth moves in slow, unhurried circles, and the glass beneath it grows clear, and the water outside grows visible, and the drifting lights outside seem, for a moment, to have been invited into the room. When she is done, she folds the chamois and hangs it back on its hook, and turns and looks at the bowl of marbles at the center of the room. This, now, is her long and patient work for the evening. She crosses to a low cupboard beneath one shelf and opens it. From within, she takes a small stool of dark wood and a second, larger wooden bowl, and a piece of felt cloth folded in careful quarters. She carries these to the round table and arranges them, unhurried. The stool she sets beside the table. The empty bowl she places to the right of the marble bowl. The felt cloth she unfolds and spreads across her lap as she sits. She rolls up her sleeves to the elbow. Her forearms are pale and strong, and marked here and there with the small, pale freckles of a life spent close to water. She rubs her palms together to warm them. She reaches into the great bowl of marbles, and without looking, chooses one. The marble she has chosen is the color of a bottle held to a lamp, a deep, clear green. She sets it in the felt cloth on her lap. She folds the cloth over it, and she begins, with slow, careful pressure, to roll it. You can hear the marble turning inside the cloth. It is a small sound, a soft, rounded sound, the sound of glass being cared for. Each marble in the bowl, you understand somehow. Perhaps because Ozielle has explained it once before, in a life you do not quite remember, represents an hour of silence donated to the reading room. Every reader who has ever descended into the Bathysphere has, upon leaving, taken a marble from their pocket and placed it in the bowl. 1 marble for each hour they meant to have been quiet. Some readers have left 1 marble. Some have left many. The bowl is very full. It has been filling for a long time. Ozielle's task, night after night, is to polish these marbles. Not because they need polishing. They are, most of them, still perfectly clear. But because it is a kind of thanks. Each marble is an hour of quiet. And each hour of quiet deserves to be handled and turned and admired. She does not polish the whole bowl in one night. She polishes as many as she polishes, and the rest wait. And there's no shame in waiting. She turns the green marble in the felt, slowly, slowly. The cloth softens against the glass. The glass warms very slightly against her palms. She holds it up to the phosphor light. The light passes through it and lands on the teak floor as a small green coin. She sets the green marble carefully into the second bowl, the empty one, where the polished marbles will gather. It clicks softly against the wood. She reaches again into the great bowl. This time, without looking, she chooses a marble the color of a summer evening, a deep, soft blue, shot through with a single fine thread of white. She sets it in the felt cloth. She folds the cloth. She begins to roll. As she works, her eyes move slowly to the porthole nearest her, and she looks out at the water, and, as she has done a great many times before, she names the color of the water in her mind, without speaking. Tonight, it is ink drift blue, she thinks. The kind of blue that ink makes when it falls into a glass of water and pauses there, uncertain whether to disperse. She rolls the marble. She lifts it. She sets it in the second bowl. Click. She chooses another. This one is milky, the color of pale moonlight. It is heavier than it looks. She folds it into the felt and rolls it, and her wrists move in the same slow, careful circles they have moved in for many years. Outside the porthole, a shape passes. It is long and pale and slow, a squid drifting, its own soft light pulsing along the underside of its body. Ozielle does not look up. She has seen many squid, but she is aware of it, the way one is aware of a friend passing behind one's chair. The light of the squid slides across the porthole, painting the inside of the reading room, very briefly, with a soft green shimmer. And then the squid moves on, and the shimmer moves on with it. And the reading room is again its own milk-warm color. Squid-lantern green, she thinks. She lifts the milky marble to the light, and it glows, and she sets it in a second bowl. Click. The pressure gauge ticks. The pulley rope creaks softly, far above. A drop of condensation slides down the middle porthole and into its brass gutter with a tiny, satisfied sound. You find that you are breathing more slowly. You did not decide to. The room decided it for you. The tick and the roll and the creak and the drop have arranged themselves into a rhythm, and your breath has slipped into that rhythm without asking permission. In, out, tick, roll, creak, drop. Ozielle chooses another marble. This one is amber, the color of honey held to a candle. She sets it in the felt. She rolls. She lifts it. The light passes through it and lands as a warm gold coin on the teak floor near her foot. She smiles, very slightly, at the gold coin, and then she sets the marble in the second bowl. Click. She has done 4 marbles. She will do many more. There is no hurry. You find, without meaning to, that you have taken a seat, perhaps in the velvet chair, whose nap is worn to softness by the many readers before you, perhaps on the floor, against the curve of the shelves, where the teak is warm from the phosphor light. It does not much matter where you have sat. You are seated, and you are watching Ozielle work, and the reading room is holding you gently in its round brass palm. For a while, a long, comfortable while, nothing happens but this. Ozielle chooses marbles. She rolls them in the felt. She lifts them to the light. She names, silently, the colors of the water outside. She sets each polished marble in the second bowl with a small, satisfied click. Ink drift blue, squid-lantern green, the pale gold of a passing lanternfish shoal, the soft violet of the water just below the top of the shelf, where sunlight, in some seasons, still remembers how to reach, the bottle glass green of the deeper channel that runs past the shelf's edge, the moonlit milk color that the water sometimes takes when a shoal of tiny, transparent creatures drifts by and the phosphor light catches them all at once. Each color, once named, is set aside, the way each marble is set aside. Both are small acts of care. Now and then, a shape moves past a porthole, a slow, finning fish the size of a plate, with a mouth like a sleepy old man, a drift of pale jellyfish, each with a pulsing lamp inside, a single silvery eel who turns, curious, to look in through the glass with one round black eye. The eel considers the reading room for a long moment. The shelves, the lit sconces, the seated caretaker, the bowl of marbles, and you. And then, satisfied, moves on. Ozielle nods at the eel as it goes. She has met this eel before. He passes on many evenings. Once, a great slow shape you cannot quite make out drifts past the far porthole. It is only a shadow, a gentle darkening of the water, a soft shifting of the currents. Ozielle glances at it, and her mouth softens into the shape of a smile, and she returns to her work. She has met this one before, too. Whatever it is a friend. You watch her hands. You listen to the tick of the gauge. You listen to the small click of a polished marble finding its place in the second bowl. You listen to the deep, muffled hush of 200 fathoms of water, pressing very gently against every curve of the brass hull, holding the reading room the way the reading room is holding you. You are safe. You are warm. You have nothing at all to do. After a time, you could not say how much time, a small sound arrives that is different from the other sounds. It is the creak of the pulley rope, but a slightly different creak, a slightly slower creak. The cage is descending. Someone is coming down. Ozielle does not stop her work. She hears the change in the rope, and she recognizes it, but she does not stop. The work is what welcomes people. She simply chooses another marble and sets it in the felt. The cage arrives. You can hear it settling at the landing platform outside. You can hear the small click of the brass gate. You can hear a soft footfall on the platform. The round door of the reading room opens quietly on its long hinge. A person steps in. They are neither young nor old. They are dressed in a heavy wool sweater, the color of oatmeal, and canvas trousers and boots. Their hair is damp with sea mist. They have kind eyes and quiet hands. They do not speak because they know the rule, and they would not have spoken anyway. This is the sort of person who has come to the reading room. They meet Ozielle's eyes briefly and nod, She nods back. It is the whole conversation. It is enough. The reader reaches into a pocket of their sweater and takes out a small handful of glass marbles. They cross to the round table at the center of the room and, one by one, drop the marbles into the great bowl. Each one makes a small musical sound as it joins the others. Plink, plink, plink. Ozielle does not count them. It is not the sort of accounting one does out loud, or even in one's head. The marbles are given, and the marbles are received. Then the reader turns to the shelves. They move slowly along the curve of the wall, one shelf at a time, their fingertips drifting just above the spines of the books, but not quite touching. They pause here and there. They tilt their head to read a title. They move on. At last, on the third shelf from the floor, they find what they came for. It is a slim book bound in dark green cloth, with a title stamped in faded gold. A book of tide tables, calculated long ago for a coastline that may or may not still exist in the same shape. The reader takes it down carefully, holds it against their chest for a moment, and then carries it to the velvet chair. They sit. The chair receives them with its soft old nap. They open the book to somewhere in the middle. They begin, without haste, to read. That is all that happens with the reader, for a long, long while. They read. Ozielle polishes. You watch, or you rest, or you drift, whichever suits you. The pressure gauge ticks. The rope creaks. Drops slide down the portholes into the small brass gutters. Bioluminescent shoals drift by outside, painting the reading room briefly with green and gold and back to milk. You breathe in, you breathe out. The reader turns a page. The paper makes a soft, dry sound, like a leaf settling on other leaves. Ozielle sets another polished marble in the second bowl. Click. You realize, after a while, that you cannot quite remember when the reader arrived. You cannot quite remember when you arrived either. You are simply here now, and you have been here, it seems, for as long as you can remember, and you will be here, it seems, for exactly as long as you would like. The reading room breathes with you. Ozielle sets down her felt cloth for a moment and stretches her fingers, slowly, one at a time. She rolls her wrists in small, careful circles. She looks up at the phosphor sconce nearest her and, without expression, offers it a small nod of thanks for its patient light. Then she picks the felt cloth up again, chooses another marble, and returns to her work. She chooses a marble that is nearly clear, with a tiny bubble suspended near its center, like a held breath. She sets it in the felt. She rolls it. She lifts it. The bubble catches the light and holds it. Held breath clear, she thinks. And then, the water tonight is held breath clear too, in the places where nothing is moving. She sets the marble in the second bowl. Click. Sometime later, you truly cannot say how much later, Ozielle rises from her stool. Her knees make a small, kind noise, the noise of knees that have done this before. She rolls her shoulders once. She looks at the second bowl. It has, over the course of the evening, filled quite pleasantly. Not full, never full in one night, but a fine, glimmering handful of freshly polished marbles in every color she has been able to name. She takes the second bowl and, with careful reverence, carries it to a shelf built low into the curve of the wall. On this shelf are other bowls, each holding the polished marbles of other evenings. She sets the bowl among them. She rests her hand on the shelf for a moment. Thank you, she does not say. Then she moves to a small hatch set into the floor near the shelves and lifts it. Inside is a compartment with a copper kettle, a small brass burner, a tin of loose tea leaves, and a stack of pale cups. She lifts the kettle out. It has been filled already. She filled it before descending. She sets it on the burner. She lights the burner with a long wooden match, and a small blue flame comes obediently up. The kettle begins, very slowly, to warm. It will take a long time to boil. Ozielle prefers a long boiling kettle. She believes that the heating of water should not be rushed, because water has a memory, and hurried water forgets what it is supposed to be. While the kettle warms, she moves to the middle porthole, and, with the chamois cloth again, gently wipes away the fresh condensation that has gathered since her first pass of the evening. Slow circles. The water outside becomes visible again. She notes, silently, the color. Ink drift blue still, but a little darker, a little more settled, as though the water itself has begun to consider sleep. She hangs the chamois back on its hook. She crosses to the velvet chair, where the reader has, without her noticing, drifted off. The tide tables lie open in their lap. Their head has tilted, softly, against the wing of the chair. Their breath is deep and slow. Ozielle does not wake them. Of course she does not. She takes a folded blanket from a shelf, a heavy, soft blanket the color of stone, and drapes it, with practiced hands, across the reader's lap. She lifts the book of tide tables, marks their place with a strip of dark green ribbon from her pocket, and sets the book gently on the side table. She does all of this without a sound. Then she returns to her stool, but she does not, this time, take out the felt cloth. Instead, she rests her hands in her lap, and she watches the reader sleep. It is one of the small pleasures of her work. She is not sentimental about it. She simply feels, at moments like this, that the reading room is behaving as it was made to behave, and that pleases her the way a well-fitted door pleases a carpenter. The kettle, in its slow, patient way, begins to sing. It is not a loud singing. It is only a small, held tone, the way an empty seashell sings when it is held to the ear. Ozielle rises again and moves to the kettle. She lifts it from the burner and turns off the small blue flame. She takes down 2 cups, and then, considering, a third. She measures loose tea into a small teapot with a slotted lid. She pours the water. She sets the pot to steep. The smell that begins to fill the reading room, gradually, is the smell of tea. A dark, warm, faintly floral tea, the kind that has been favored in cold coastal places for generations. It joins the smell of old paper and cedar oil, and the faint mineral tang of deep seawater on cold brass. And together, these smells make a kind of home. When the tea is steeped, Ozielle pours 1 cup for herself and sets 1 cup on the side table beside the sleeping reader, in case they should wake and want it, and sets 1 cup on the round table in the center of the room. That 3rd cup, you understand somehow, is for you. You do not need to lift it. It is simply there, warm and present, as a kind of company. Ozielle takes her own cup back to her stool. She sits. She cradles the cup in both hands. She does not sip immediately. She warms her hands first, palm against ceramic, and lets the steam rise past her face. She looks at the portholes. She looks at the shelves. She looks at the bowl of marbles, and the second bowl now waiting on its shelf. She looks at the sleeping reader and their blanket. She looks at you, or at where you are, wherever that is inside the reading room, and she gives you a small, kind nod. Then she sips her tea. It is exactly the right temperature. She has done this many times. You breathe in, you breathe out. The pressure gauge ticks. A drop slides down a porthole. The pulley rope creaks, once, softly, above. Somewhere out in the water, a shoal of lanternfish drifts past the reading room, and their many small lights paint the inside of the room in pale gold for a long moment. The color of butter, the color of a candle at midnight, the color of straw under a low afternoon sun. The gold moves across the shelves and across the sleeping reader and across the felt cloth on Ozielle's lap and across your face. And then, slowly, it moves on, and the room is again its milk-warm color. The pale gold of a passing lanternfish shoal, Ozielle thinks, and smiles into her tea. After her tea, she rises once more. She rinses her cup with a small ladle of clean water from a covered jug, dries it with a linen cloth, sets it back on the shelf. She takes her felt cloth and folds it into its careful quarters. She replaces it in the low cupboard. She replaces the small stool. She replaces the second bowl on its shelf with the others. She restores the reading room, quietly, to the state in which she found it. She does not blow out the phosphor sconces. They will glow for many hours yet, and will fade only when their small crystals decide that the night is done. She likes to leave them lit for the reader, and for you, and for whoever else may descend before morning. She takes down a long wool shawl from a hook near the door and drapes it around her shoulders. She rests her hand briefly on the round door, but does not open it. She is not leaving yet. She will sit a while longer. She usually does. She returns to the velvet chair, though not to the chair itself. She sits on the floor beside it, her back against the curve of the shelves, her legs folded neatly beneath the wool coat. She rests her head against the shelves. She closes her eyes, not to sleep. Ozielle rarely sleeps in the reading room, but to listen. She listens to the tick of the pressure gauge. She listens to the creak of the pulley rope, far above. She listens to the drop of condensation sliding down the porthole. She listens to the deep, muffled hush of 200 fathoms of quiet water. She listens to the slow breath of the sleeping reader. She listens, perhaps, to your breath too. The reading room breathes with all of you. And now, gently, we begin the slowest part of the evening. You may find that your eyes have grown very heavy. That is well. You may find that your body feels a little further away than it did a moment ago, as though someone has laid a soft blanket between you and it. That is well, too. You do not need to hold on to the reading room, or to Ozielle, or to the sleeping reader, or to the bowl of marbles. They will hold themselves. They have been holding themselves for a very long time. If you would like, you may imagine yourself in the velvet chair beside the sleeping reader. There is room, somehow, though it is a chair for one. Or you may imagine yourself curled on the floor near Ozielle, wrapped in the same stone-colored blanket. Or you may simply drift, without any body at all, near the ceiling of the reading room, watching from above as the small, warm scene continues. Wherever you are, the sconces are glowing the color of moonlit milk. Wherever you are, the pressure gauge is ticking slow and patient. Wherever you are, the pulley rope is creaking softly above, and a drop of condensation is sliding down a porthole, and a shoal of small, bright creatures is drifting past outside, painting the room for a moment in green, then gold, then back to milk. You are held. You do not need to hold yourself. The tick of the gauge grows softer, or perhaps it does not grow softer, and you are simply further away from it. Either is fine. The creak of the rope, the drop of water, the soft breath of the sleeping reader. Ozielle, eyes closed, resting against the shelves. The bowl of marbles at the center of the room, catching the last of the phosphor light. Each marble, a small, kept hour of silence. Green, blue, amber, milk. The water outside, ink drift blue, squid-lantern green, lanternfish gold, held breath clear. The smell of old paper, the smell of cedar oil, the faint mineral tang of deep seawater on cold brass, the last soft warmth of the tea. You are 200 fathoms down in a small brass room, and nothing here can reach you but kindness. Your breath slows. The tick of the gauge slows with it. Or perhaps it does not slow. Perhaps you are simply drifting further from it, the way one drifts in the deep, further and further from the surface. You do not need to follow the story any longer. The story will continue without you. Ozielle will sit against her shelves, and the reader will sleep in the velvet chair, and the marbles will wait in their bowl, and the phosphor sconces will glow, and the pressure gauge will tick, and a drop will slide down a porthole, and a shoal of small, bright creatures will drift past, and the deep, muffled hush of 200 fathoms will hold the reading room in its round green palm. All of this will go on quietly, whether you are here or not. So you may rest. You may rest now. Let the reading room grow dim at the edges of your mind. Let the shelves fade. Let the portholes fade. Let the bowl of marbles fade, though you may keep one. A small, warm marble, the color of your choosing, cupped somewhere behind your heart. An hour of quiet donated to you. Let Ozielle fade kindly into the shelves. Let the sleeping reader fade into their velvet chair. Let the tick of the gauge grow slower and slower and slower. You are held. You do not need to hold yourself. Rest now. Sleep. 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 And let the deep hold you as it holds the reading room. There's nothing left to do. There's nothing left to carry. There's nothing left to remember, unless you wish to, and even then only softly, the way one remembers the color of a room one slept in as a child. The brass room continues without you. The lamps continue their 4 small colors: green, blue, amber, milk. The porthole continues its slow, patient watch on the water. The water continues its slow, patient drift past the porthole. Somewhere above you, far above, the surface is doing whatever the surface does, carrying its weather, carrying its light, carrying its many small hurries. None of that reaches down here. None of that has ever reached down here. 200 fathoms is a long, kind distance. You are further from it now than you were a moment ago, and further still. The reading room grows quieter, as if the walls themselves are settling into a longer breath. The books settle on their shelves. The paper of their pages softens. The cedar oil in the wood grows warmer, and its scent moves through the room like a slow tide. The brass fittings, polished so many times by so many patient hands, hold their small, warm gleam. Ozielle, at her shelves, has closed her eyes. She has not gone anywhere. She is only resting, the way a librarian rests between one small task and the next. Upright, unhurried, her hand still touching the spine of the book she was about to shelve. She will finish shelving it in her own time. There is no hurry in the reading room, and there never has been. The reader in the velvet chair has not moved. lies open on their lap, face down, its pages soft with use. Their breathing is slow. Their face is soft. They have gone somewhere gentle, inside their sleep, and the reading room holds them while they are gone. The bowl of marbles waits on its low table. The marbles inside it settle against one another with the smallest of clicks, so small you do not truly hear them. You only know that they have settled, the way one knows that snow has finished falling. Each marble holds its hour. Each hour is patient. Each hour is kept. The phosphor sconces along the curved brass wall glow their steady green. They do not flicker. They do not dim. They only glow softly, the way certain creatures glow in the deep, without effort, without intention, simply because glowing is what they do. The pressure gauge on the wall ticks. Once, and again, slower than a clock, slower than a heart, slower than your breath. It is not measuring time. It is only keeping company with room. A single drop of condensation slides down the inside of the nearest porthole. It moves without hurry. It gathers a small companion drop on its way, and the two of them travel together down the curve of the glass until they reach the brass rim, where they rest. They will rest there a long while. There is nowhere they need to be. Outside the porthole, the water is doing its patient, endless work. A slow current moves past the hull, cool and heavy, older than any language. Small creatures drift within it. A pale medusa, its bell opening and closing as if breathing. A chain of tiny glowing lights threaded through the dark like beads on a soft string. A single slow fish, silver-eyed, considering the porthole with mild curiosity before continuing on its way. None of them are in a hurry. Nothing at 200 fathoms is in a hurry. The deep does not permit it. The deep insists gently that everything be slow, and you have been permitted to be slow. You have been permitted for this long, quiet hour to move at the pace of the deep, your breath at the pace of the current, your thoughts at the pace of the drifting medusa, your heart at the pace of the gauge on the wall. Slower and slower and slower still. If a thought comes to you now, a small stray thought from somewhere far above, from the surface world where things hurry, you may let it drift past the porthole of your mind, the way the medusa drifted past the porthole of the reading room. You do not need to catch it. You do not need to open it. You do not need to follow where it goes. It will move along on its own current into the dark, and the dark will hold it kindly. The deep is very good at holding things. The deep has been holding things for a long, long time. The reading room, small and brass and warm, is only one of the many quiet places the deep holds. Somewhere, not far, there is a small brass kitchen where a kettle rests on a low, warm plate, its water still faintly steaming. Somewhere, there's a small brass corridor lined with pale green lamps that leads from one quiet room to another. Somewhere, there's a small brass observation dome, its glass thick as a hand, looking out into a garden of slow, pale coral where nothing needs to be tended. You do not need to visit these rooms. You only need to know that they exist quietly around you, and that they too are held. The whole small station is held. The whole small station is resting, and you, inside it, are resting too. The tea in your cup, if you still remember the cup, has gone cool. That is all right. The cool tea is as kind as the warm tea was. It waits on its saucer, on the low table near the bowl of marbles. Nobody minds that you have not finished it. The reading room has all the patience in the world. The blanket over your knees, if you still remember the blanket, is soft and heavy and just the right weight. It has settled around you in the shape of you. It knows you now. It will keep knowing you for as long as you rest here. The chair beneath you, if you still remember the chair, has grown into your shape as well. Its cushions cradle your back. Its arms cradle your arms. Its high, soft wings shelter your head, so that even the quiet green light of the sconces does not reach your eyes too brightly. You are held on all sides by soft things, by warm things, by quiet things. And underneath all of them, the deep. The deep is not cold here. The deep is only vast and patient and slow. It rocks the little brass station the way a very old sea rocks a very small boat. Gently, gently, so gently, you do not truly feel it. You only know that you are being rocked. Rocked, and rocked, and rocked. The pressure gauge ticks once, softly, as if to agree. Ozielle, at her shelves, breathes out. A small, contented breath. The breath of a librarian who has finished the last task of the day and has not yet begun the first task of tomorrow. The breath moves through the reading room like a small, warm current. It touches the pages of the open book on the reader's lap. It touches the surface of the cool tea in your cup. It touches the soft blanket over your knees. It touches your forehead, briefly, kindly, the way a hand might rest there for a moment before withdrawing. And then it is gone, and the room is quiet again. Quieter than before. Quieter than it has been. Quieter than you thought a room could be. The phosphor sconces dim, only a little, only enough to notice if you are looking, and you are not looking. Your eyes, if you still remember your eyes, are closed. They have been closed for some time. They will remain closed. The reading room is dimming at the edges of your mind. The shelves are dimming. The portholes are dimming. The bowl of marbles is dimming. The one small marble you were given, the color of your choosing, is still there, still warm, cupped somewhere behind your heart, still holding its small, kept hour of quiet for you. You may keep it. You may keep it as long as you like. You may keep it for tonight and for tomorrow, and for whatever quiet hour later you find yourself in need of it. It will still be warm. It will still be yours. Ozielle is dimming kindly into her shelves. Her outline softens. Her small round spectacles catch one last small gleam of green light, and then that gleam softens too, and she is only a quiet presence at the edge of the room, no longer a figure, just a knowing, a gentleness, a sense of being watched over by someone who wishes you well. The reader in the velvet chair is dimming into their chair. Their book softens on their lap. Their breath softens with yours. They too are only a quiet presence now, a sleeping companion on the far side of a small, warm room, resting as you rest. The tick of the gauge grows slower and slower and slower. You do not need to count the ticks. You do not need to follow them. They are only there in the background, keeping their patient small time. You are drifting. You are drifting further from the reading room. You are drifting further from the small brass station. You are drifting further from 200 fathoms, though the deep is still holding you and will not let you go. You are drifting into your own quiet, into your own soft dark, into your own long, slow breath. Green, blue, amber, milk, the 4 small colors, one last time, glowing gently at the edge of your mind. The color of moss on old stone. The color of ink held up to a candle. The color of a small kept flame. The color of warm milk in a pale cup. They dim. They soften. They fade. The smell of cedar oil, one last time, warm and slow and old and kind. It moves through the room and through your breath and settles somewhere behind your heart, beside the small, warm marble. It fades. The sound of the deep, one last time. The muffled hush, the vast, patient quiet, the round green palm of the sea. It softens. It settles. It holds. You are held. You are held by the chair. You are held by the blanket. You are held by the reading room. You are held by the small brass station. You are held by the deep. You are held by the night. You do not need to hold yourself. You have not needed to for some time now. Everything you have carried today, you may set down here. Set it in the bowl beside the marbles. Set it on the low table beside the cup. Set it on the shelves where Ozielle will find it and file it away patiently in whatever quiet drawer it belongs to. You do not need to know which drawer. You do not need to know where it goes. You only need to set it down. There. It is set down. It is no longer yours to carry. The reading room will carry it for you tonight. The deep will carry it tonight. You may rest. You may rest completely. Your breath is slow. Your body is soft. Your thoughts are drifting past the porthole, one after another, out into the dark water, where the dark water holds them kindly and lets them go where they will. You do not need to follow them. You do not need to follow anything. Not the story, not the room, not the tick of the gauge, not even the sound of these words. The words will continue for a little while, and then they too will fade. They will fade the way the lamps faded. They will fade the way Ozielle faded. They will fade the way the reading room faded at the edges of your mind. And when they're gone, you will still be held. You will still be held by the deep. You will still be held by the night. You will still be held by your own slow, kind breath, moving in and out quietly in the dark. Rest now. Rest fully. Rest deeply. The reading room dims. The lamps dim. The porthole dims. The gauge slows. Ozielle rests. The reader rests. The station rests. The deep rests. And you rest with them. You rest with all of them. You rest. Sleep. Sleep gently. Sleep softly. Sleep deeply. Sleep. Sleep. Sleep.